Hello, Year 10. This is a little video I've thrown together to give you an introduction to the genetics topic, which I know a lot of you have been great. You've been already started this over the break and over the last few weeks of the term, but finally we've caught up with the technology side of my end with this whole COVID-19 isolation thing that's going on. So let's get into it, people, all right, and talk about genetics and evolution in more detail. Alrighty, so in terms of the syllabus, we are looking at the advances in scientific understanding and how they rely on technology and how they're linked to scientific discoveries in terms of the living world, as well as how the theory of evolution by natural selection explains the diversity of living things on the world, all right, life on the planet, and how there is a number of key pieces of scientific evidence that supports the whole idea of natural selection and evolution. Okay, so one of the things I always like to start off talking in this genetics and evolution topic is to kind of talk about my view of biology as a big picture, galaxy brain time. Okay, and so looking at biology as a topic, all right, there's kind of like 4 domains that you need to worry about, all right? And that is the structure and function of living things, the environment, so the relationship between the environment and living things, super important, all right, as well as the genetics of living things, which informs their structure and function, and the pressures of the environment informs the frequency of genes being present in populations of living things. All right, and so we have this feedback between all of these processes that are occurring across living things that actually is enabled. This back and forth is enabled by evolution. It's central to everything, because everything is slowly changing from one generation to the next. All right, and I've put behind all of that human impact that includes our technology. All right, so it's just it's worth pointing that out. We have this this big impact on the world. All right, so that's kind of like my idea about how all these topics in biology fit together. Okay, it's one of those sort of things to be mindful of when you're talking about it, is you often end up talking about one of these 5 topics, or how multiple of these topics actually fit together and relate to each other. Often human impact, how it relates on other things like the environment, evolution, or genetics. All right, so a really good place to start when talking about biology, particularly in the case of genetics and evolution, is to consider some scenarios, because right now we're living in a very interesting time, and I'm not just referring to the whole COVID-19 isolation that we've been going through for the last few weeks, but I'm referring to the way in which our understanding and the technology that we are using to manipulate genetics is actually rapidly advancing, okay? And so we're very much in this real situation where down the track, you yourself or you and your partner, when you are choosing to have children, later on down the track, you might consider using an IVF clinic or using some form of genetic treatment to actually change your genes or to change the genes of your child. Okay, and that raises a number of kind of interesting situations that we're not prepared to answer at the moment. And so they raise a number of interesting questions for us to consider. Okay, so let's take a look at this first scenario. All right. So in this scenario, what if you could change your own genes? So imagine if you had a history of heart disease, breast cancer, or Alzheimer's in your family, okay, and it was a cheap procedure, all right? The technology to do this is actually getting super cheap, all right? It's called CRISPR, all right? And imagine if you could go to the doctors, get referred to a specialist. You might have to pay a couple of $1,000s, but you could have a defective gene of yours replaced with one which has a much lower chance of getting heart disease or breast cancer or Alzheimer's. All right, it's a big change in terms of how we can go about treating diseases, in particular non-infectious diseases. All right, like those lifestyle ones like heart disease and so forth. All right, would you pay to replace your defective gene? All right, doesn't seem too bad, and as long as it wasn't too expensive. All right, yeah, I mean, I think many people would probably consider to pay for that. What about if you were planning a family? You and your partner, you're having trouble conceiving a child, so you decide to go get IVF. It costs about $10,000 an attempt at the moment to get IVF. All right, and what if the clinic told you if you paid an extra $1,000, we can replace a small number of your genes with substitutes that have zero risk for developing heart disease, breast cancer, or Alzheimer's in your offspring, your child? All right, would you pay to change your child's genes? I mean, would they even still be your child, considering that they now have some genes from a third person? Or if it's multiple genes getting replaced, then they're quite possibly a whole bunch of people. All right, is there maybe a tiny, tiny issue of consent where you're making decisions about this child's genetics and decisions that might have big consequences down the track if things go wrong? All right, there could be this issue of consent, kind of little thing to think about. All right, that's kind of where we're not really ready to consider these questions, but let's go to the third scenario. All right, 9 out of 10 Olympic power athletes, they actually have a specific gene variant, the R577X gene variant, that actually breaks down lactic acid really well, all right, in their muscles. All right. Now, the same technology in scenario 2 that could be used to replace the high-risk genes for developing a disease in an IVF baby could be used to give the IVF child that gene variant. Okay, how much would you pay to give your child the opportunity to be an Olympic athlete? All right, what would actually happen to the Olympics if the athletes who are competing are literally designed prior to birth to have specific genes so that they can compete the most effectively? All right, I mean, how do we even run that? Do we do drug tests now before the Olympics? Do we do a gene test? All right, what if you're that 1 out of 10 power athletes who doesn't have that gene? Do we run a 100-meter sprint like golf and give you a handicap? You get to start a couple of meters up the track, all right, compared to everyone else. Do you get or are you stuffed over because you didn't choose the right parents? Or maybe you're given the opportunity to upgrade. These are questions we don't have the answer for, people. All righty, and they're questions we're going to be asking in terms of the consequences and implications of the technology we're going to talk about in this topic. All right, so I hope I've gotten your minds going. Alrighty, now to finish us off today, we have a topic pre-test for you to complete. Now I have this as a Google form for you to fill in on our Google Classroom. Okay, all right, so have a go, answer these 10 questions. All right, and submit the quiz on Google Classroom. Oh, I almost forgot. Actually, final slide of this presentation. I like to throw in, just a fun little picture or a piece of art at the end of my video lessons. Okay, I just wanted to share with you this is a famous piece of art by Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, the famous artist. All right, it's called The Creation of Adam. We have God reaching down. Okay. Now, I want to actually point out to you that there is a hidden image in this picture. Okay, Michelangelo is being a little bit subversive. So in the comments for this video, first person to list down the hidden object in this painting, the correct hidden object, will get a commendation. All right, bye-bye.